Hey guys, APG40 here, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys a keyboard called the HK Gaming GK61, which is not necessarily new, but you can buy it with the yellow optical switches, which is now the fastest keyboard switch on the market if you didn't know. I'm going to split the video into multiple parts. The first part I'll talk about what makes this keyboard the fastest keyboard on the market, then I'll touch on how it feels, and then I'm going to talk about the build quality of the keyboard and compare it to other keyboards. And then finally, I'm going to touch on the price and determine whether it's worth the buy for Fortnite. Also, huge shout out to It's Jerian, because without his video about the keyboard, I would never even thought to bought it and try it out, which I definitely don't regret doing. I love the keyboard. It's a great keyboard, and I even prefer it over the Apex Pro right now. Before we get into the video, I'd like to officially announce that I'm doing aim coaching. As for how good my aim is, I feel like I have pretty good aim, and you could judge me off the background clips of this video, and you can watch other videos of mine to see how good my aim is. And all you have to do is just DM me on Twitter, twitter.com/apg40_, shoot me a DM, and I'll give you my rates, and then you could decide to buy. First, I'm going to talk about what makes this keyboard the fastest keyboard on the market, which is the switches. The switches in this keyboard are the yellow optical jerian switches, which are basically like jerian switches, but they're clones of it, so it's the same thing. What makes these switches so fast is A, the response time, B, the actuation force, not the actuation itself, and C, how fast it bottoms out. These switches have a 0.2 millisecond response time, which is a whole 0.5 milliseconds faster than the Apex Pro, which doesn't seem like the biggest difference on paper, but everything counts. The actuation force on this keyboard, which is the force it takes to press down on the key, is only 35 grams, which means that it is a lot lighter and easier to press down than all the other switches. jerian blue and black switches have an actuation force of 60 grams, browns have an actuation force of 55 grams, and silver/speed switches have an actuation of 45 grams, along with the red switches. Finally, the optical yellow switches bottom out much faster than any other switch on the market. These switches bottom out at 3.2 millimeters, which is higher than the standard switch at 4 millimeters. This doesn't seem like much of a difference on paper, I know, but when using it, I love how it feels. It makes a keyboard so responsive, and you bottom out so much faster than you would even with the Apex Pro. I just love the feeling of the switch, and I honestly prefer it over the Apex Pro right now. It might change in the future, but right now I do prefer it over the Apex Pro, which is what I used before, by the way. One thing about the Apex Pro is that it actuates at 0.4 millimeters, but I still bottom out on the keyboard, which means that if I double tap a key, I have to wait for the switch to reset and then go back up again. With the GK61 Yellow Switches on this keyboard, I can bottom out way faster, and the keys are lighter to hit, which makes it feel extremely nice when I free build in-game in Fortnite. And I honestly feels like my fingers are kind of flying at sometimes, like a little bit exaggerated, but like it feels like really fast. I also use 3 thumb dimes to build, by the way, so the lighter actuation force makes it really easy to press down when I'm moving my thumb, which I have to kind of like graze over the keys because they're all right next to each other. It's like X, C, and V. I honestly think these switches are the best feeling I've ever used for me, and which shows a lot considering I've used an Apex Pro, Ducky, the Ant Pro 2, etc., which are all like top keyboards on the market that a lot of pros use. And yeah. Now, I already talked about how this keyboard feels in the first segment, but I'm going to go more in depth. Like I said before, the keyboard bottoms out very fast, making it feel very responsive to me. It kind of has the same feel as the bump you get in the brown switches when you push down on them, but it's more pronounced. If you didn't know, brown switches have a tactile bump in them, which when you hit the key to the point where it actuates, you'll feel the switch going over the tactile bump. It kind of moves the switch over, and because of this, it makes the keyboard very responsive. This is a big reason why a lot of people love brown switches and prefer them over all other switches, even if another switch is faster. And you'll see some pros still using like an Ant Pro 2 with brown switches, for example. Like some of them still use that because of that. Also, the 35 gram actuation force, not the actuation itself, but the force is pressed down on the key, makes the keyboard switches very light to touch, which means you don't have to put as much force on the key when pressing it down. This makes switching your fingers throughout the keys is easier, as you don't have to press down as hard to hit the key. These two things added up together on the switches make the keys have an insanely good feel, like I said before, and I prefer the feel of the switches over every other keyboard that I've used. As for the build quality, it's pretty good. It may not be the best, but it's basically the same build quality as the M Pro 2, which is not bad, and I would say it's pretty average for most keyboards. The keyboard elevation, so the angle that it's on, is just lower than the elevation of the M Pro 2, so the M Pro has more of a decline on it going downwards. That's not a big deal though, and it's easy to adjust to. In fact, I didn't even notice it when I started using the keyboard. I only noticed it when doing the review and comparing it to the other keyboards I had. The stock keycaps are ABS, just like the Apex Pro, which means it's not as durable and good as PBT keycaps, but it's okay, and it's not the biggest deal in the world. They can still be used, and yeah. They kind of have more of a sticky feeling, I guess. It's harder to slide your fingers on them through keys as fast compared to PBT keycaps, where your fingers just come right off the key. If that really annoys you, then you could buy a third-party set of keycaps, but if you just want to buy the keyboard, then you don't have to. It should be fine. However, if you go the route of buying third-party keycaps, I suggest using mechanicalkeyboards.com. Just make sure they're PBT. But Matrix Keyboards also has some nice-looking PBT keycaps too. I'm going to take time here also to talk about the software and the keyboard shortcuts. To be honest, the software is really bad. I just have to be frank. And it took me 30 minutes to figure out how to change the backlight of the color through it. And I still can get the color, the blue color that I wanted. I had to settle for lighter blue because the hex code, if you don't know what that is, it's a code for a number. For the blue I wanted wasn't working. And I even had to change the version of the software to actually fix it. The stock keycaps show what functions certain things do. So if, like, for example, the 1 through 9 key, they're F keys, and they have that on the side of the keycap so you can see. And they have some pretty standard functions. Like I said before, the numbers become F keys when you hold down the function key, and there are now arrow keys on the keyboard. If you hold down function, it's going to be the bottom 3 keys on the right of the spacebar. So will act as A, S, and D, and then 1 key above will act as W. Okay, now time to talk about the price. For switches that are basically the same speed as the Apex Pro and the Razer Huntsman keyboards, this is an absolutely amazing keyboard for its price at $70 on Amazon. The Apex Pro is $180 and the Huntsman TE is $130, and the TE Mini, or the 60% version, is also $130, which is almost double what the GK61 is. A reason it is like this at a cheap price is because the GK61 is actually the name of a PCB, not a keyboard. If anyone that has made a custom keyboard before out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. The case, stabilizers, switches, etc. are all custom for keyboards. You can buy them off banggood.com if you're really interested. The company HK Gaming, which is the company that made the GK61, assembles the keyboard, puts their brand on it, and then sells it on Amazon or wherever you buy it. However, this is not the most shady technique. Lots of companies do this, and it's called OEM. My point is that having such a fast keyboard like the GK61 with the yellow Gateron switches at a $70 price point is absolutely phenomenal, and it's the only keyboard on the market that is that cheap and is very fast. It's something that SteelSeries can't offer with their Apex Pro, and that Razer can't offer with their Huntsman TE and the Huntsman Mini, or the 60%, like I said before. Now, because it's only $70, there aren't going to be as many premium features on this keyboard like there are in others, like on the Razer and SteelSeries ones. For example, the Apex Pro has an OLED screen and a volume bar, and it also has a really good software, and so it's really easy to use and all like that. These are things that are very cool, yes, but in the end it won't affect your gaming performance. I don't want to say they're unnecessary, but they aren't useful when it comes to helping your gameplay. They're just there as perks. I mean, they are pretty good perks, though. The GK61 is just a simple, fast keyboard that is affordable compared to the other fast keyboards on the market, and I definitely recommend it. Alright guys, so that's going to be it for the video today. So yeah, I do recommend the GK61. It's a great keyboard if you have the money, or if you don't have the money to buy an Apex Pro or Huntsman, or if you just don't want to spend that much money. It's a really fast switch, has 0.2 millisecond response time, everything like that. It's basically the same speed as the other two switches, and it comes in at a $70 price point that the other ones don't. that's going to be it for my video. If you liked the video, make sure to comment, like, subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I'm on my road to 10,000 subscribers. And also, please follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/apg40. I talk about a lot of Fortnite things down there and how, like, my day goes on Fortnite and, like, things in that community in general. So if you're interested in that, please follow me on Twitter. And also, I am doing aim coaching, so also follow me on Twitter and DM me if you are interested in my aim coaching. As you can see by the background clips, yes, I do have pretty good aim. And that's basically going to be it for this video. And see ya.